Kenny Schultz has now been taken to the Taylor County Jail where he is facing a variety of different charges. Now, this is one of our co-workers' cars, and this is all the sleet that has accumulated over the day. Now, the bridge project here on South Clack Street not only includes the actual bridge for pedestrians, but also sidewalks that will lead to and from the bridge. 4th of July, right? It's America's birthday. What's your favorite part of America? The Abilene Police Department tweeted today that in recent weeks they have shown a trend of car burglaries occurring at nightclubs. Now, these two were a whole lot bigger earlier today. These were about baseball-sized hail. Good morning, Nora. We're out here at Lake Kirby where police are now investigating a suspicious death 24 hours ago where a murder here at Windsor Place Apartments took place. I'm going to go ahead and step out of the way for you. Now, it was back in October where Sid Reyes found himself in a bit of a controversy after he pepper sprayed a young deaf man. Well, Megan Dale Morrison was in real trouble in December of 2012. Not only was he infected with cancer, but he also had a virus infecting his brain. His doctor said he was in need of a bone marrow transplant. The transplant worked, and Morrison finally met the man who saved his life a year and a half later after flying him and his family to Abilene. Baggage claim number 1 at the Abilene airport is where many tearful greetings are made.
I have a second chance of life, and I want to make the best of it.
For Dale Morrison, it was where he was to meet the person who saved his life. Morrison was first diagnosed with cancer in 2007. Then, on a trip to Haiti to help with the earthquake relief, he contracted the PMLJC virus, which is a deadly virus in his brain. His doctors knew he needed a bone marrow transplant.
It's a 1 in 2 million. I think it's just a gift from God. I mean, it's just it was unbelievable to have a person that had my perfect, cell structure and had the antibodies, and then also that was willing to give. Once the transplant had been completed, the cancer and the virus began to fade away. Morrison wanted to meet his savior and flew Jeff Babbitt and his whole family from Seattle, Washington to Abilene. They said that, we didn't need to, do all this, and I said, no, I need to do it. It's my privilege. Finally, the moment Morrison and his family waited for, the long-awaited hug of someone who couldn't repay the debt of a gift of life.
I'm very grateful. That's what my heart feels right now, is just gratefulness for everything that he did for Dale and for our family, really, and that he was willing to do what he did to save my husband's life.
My knees are a little shaky right now. I'm not used to any kind of public notice or anything. I live kind of a simple life in a small town in Washington, and this is kind of overwhelming right now.
For now, the families will spend the time that they have together and thank the man who saved their father and husband.
He's my hero. So.
Well, Babbitt says he is hoping to fly the Morrison family to Seattle to treat them in their city. Live in the studio, Jacob Bradford, KRBC News.
Because I told Officer Sid, I said, hey, that guy didn't do nothing to you for you to be like that with him, for you to mace him. And he told me, shut the hell up, kid in my house. It wasn't none of my business.
Bobby Killo is speaking of his neighbor, 22-year-old Teodulu Bustamante, who goes by the name Teo. He's also deaf. On October 4th of this year, the quiet small town of Merkel was anything but quiet. Cell phone video shot by a neighbor captures the aftermath. After 9 p.m., Teo was taking out his trash. He tells me he had a few beers but was on his own property when Officer Sid Reyes showed up.
They were doing a routine check, I guess, and so I'm walking. They thought there was something amiss.
Officer Reyes' report states that Teo was intoxicated, hitting his trash bags against a neighbor's car who had called police. Reyes confronted Teo and, according to the report, attempted to talk to Teo by using sign language, which Teo Bustamante says didn't happen.
Said, what are you doing, and so on, and I said, I'm deaf, I can't communicate in English. And so I signed to him, please, we can take notes if you need to communicate with me.
He was telling the officer like this, write it down, I can't hear you.
Okay.
And then he went like that, and Officer Sid pulled out his mace and sprayed him. And when he fell on the ground, he put his handcuff on him and, he's holding him up, being real rough with him.
Immediately, without any provocation, really took out his spray and sprayed me in the face.
We asked Merkel Police Chief Bill Wheat to sit down on camera and talk with us about this incident. He declined. So we went ahead and asked the city manager, Steve Campbell. He too declined. But through a Freedom of Information request, KRBC News has learned that the city had also questions about Reyes' actions that night. A memo dated October 14th from the city manager to Reyes' supervising sergeant questions the officer's actions, specifically Reyes' failure to obtain an identity of the subject, now known as Teo Bustamante. It challenges Reyes's claims that he explained Tio's arrest to his mom and dad when Bustamante's parents were not on the scene, and it calls Officer Reyes's claim of using sign language to communicate troubling, as the city is not aware of Officer Reyes having sign language knowledge. That memo goes on to question why he didn't use notes to communicate with those at the scene. It also says him not turning on his patrol unit's recording devices inexcusable, as they would have been invaluable to this investigation. The whole incident has left Tio and his family confused.
Court said they were going to just drop the case, and that was it. There was no that was all that they said.
Merkel police did conduct an internal investigation, and while it detailed many of Officer Reyes' shortcomings that night, in the end Reyes was disciplined for two things: not turning on his video equipment and not notifying his sergeant that pepper spray had been used. Now, there are a lot of other details surrounding this case that add to the confusion, like Reyes' report being barely legible. Chief Wheat told me through email that the first report was incomplete, which was the reason for the two different police reports. There was also some confusion at the Taylor County Jail when Tio arrived, since Reyes did not pass along the identity of his prisoner. They ended up getting his ID from a Taylor County deputy who was also at the scene.